Welcome back to Bloomers in the Garden. So it's not too late to plant your spring flowering bulbs. Tulips, daffodils, hyacinths, crocuses, and more all can be planted. In fact, at Bloomers, we plant those 7,000 tulip bulbs around the store,
Wow.
and we're just getting started. So if you're thinking about it, you need to do it. You need to do it. You know, the first thing you got to do is get those annuals out of there. You need to pull out the plants. Most of them have been hit by a freeze or a frost, and you got to get back to bare soil. And you're going to rake that all out, make sure you're getting rid of any debris and stones and everything else. And, well, if the ground is compacted, you need to turn it over with a digging fork or a shovel. That'll be fine. You just got to turn that soil over, loosen it up a little bit, or you could be cool like me.
Oh, what do you use?
I have a rechargeable cultivator.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Yeah, it's a battery-operated mini rototiller, the Mantis.
Oh, wow.
It's still working. I think 3 or 4 years.
A little power.
When we first started talking about that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Still working, still doing a great job. Digs down about 6 to 8 inches. Perfect for bulbs.
Oh, it is.
And that you can loosen it, just till that all over. It gives you a good shot to get some organic matter in the soil. Let's put in something like bumper crop or some compost and dig it in before you plant your bulbs. Now, bulbs appreciate well-drained soil and lots of organic matter, so all plants really do. So you'll be preparing your beds for your bulbs, but it'll be just as good for your annuals that will go on top of your bulbs. Now, again, most people try to cheapen out and just put a few bulbs in, and it's like, yeah, that's nice.
I got
Is that a weed or is that a bulb? They look best when they're in a mass planting, and I'm not just trying to sell bulbs. It just plain does. When you have an area that's at least like say 3 by 3 of a collection of bulbs, rather than like a foot, like where you like a pot of bulbs were, it just is more dramatic and it looks better. You can buy a bag of like 50, and that's where you should lean to, or, buy 3 or 4 different bags, but don't mix too many colors. The problem with that is that it's like your eye doesn't know where to look. Unless you're doing a really large area, try to keep solid colors. Of those 7,000 bulbs that we talked about, 6,000 are all the same color.
Wow.
There's 1,000 that are going into a little different area that's at the corner of Bloomer's property. That's going to be a little bit different. It's like a hinge to the rest of the planting. So Don't try to go crazy by like making it multicolor. It just,
rainbow effect.
Yeah, it's like, a box of crayons got eaten and somebody threw up. It just is not it just doesn't have the same impact. Yeah. It just doesn't. Again, dramatic displays, lots of bulbs. And here's something to remember, too. When you're planting, and we're going to go over how in just a moment, when you're planting, consider taking early bulbs and putting them in, like, say, you did crocus or you did something early, like snowdrops, and put them on top of the later flowering bulbs, like, say, some of the Darwin tulips or some of the tulips that bloom later. Like, we actually brought in parrot tulips into the studio. Well, do you have them so we can show our YouTube followers that parrot tulips is a different type of tulip that it almost looks like a peonies. That come on, Julio, there we go. Let's see. This is spontaneous radio. So if you go ahead and look at that, can you get that, Aaron? Yep. There we go. That's a parrot tulip. And it, like I said, it looks more like a peonies than it does like a regular tulip. So we'll put them side by side and try to make a comparison. So, your standard tulip and your, peony tulip, or parrot tulip and regular tulip. Again, different. Parrots are going to cost more, but they're also going to be later. Just keep that in mind.
I like parrots.
They're funky. They are very, very cool.
Wow. Very James Brown funky.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And again, you can get solid colors as well. This is a mix that's complementary. So it looks like subtle differences between the colors, not like a difference between white and purple, So I like that. Yeah. All right. So, how do I plant tulips? How do I plant bulbs, period? You know, with sod, we jokingly say in the industry, it's green side up. Yeah, it's not that funny. Anyway, but with bulbs, it's the pointy side up. So just remember, the point goes up. Point goes up because that's where the stem used to be. And that underneath that was where the roots grow. So you continue to do that. So make sure that you keep that in mind when you're planting. There's a couple of ways to plant. If you're doing a large area, and this, like, my guys hate me because this is the way that I want them to plant our tulips. You go and you dig down to the depth that you need the tulip, and you're going to go 2 to 3 times the depth of the tulip bulb. So if the tulip is, say, 2 inches, you're going to put that thing 6 inches down. You're going to clear out an area of soil and dig out 2, 3, 4 feet by, the whole section wide. So you're digging out an entire layer so that it's the correct depth. And then you're putting your tulip bulbs in. Now you take that soil and you move it off to the side. And you'll hear in just a moment why. Then you're going to take the bulbs in that nice level area where the bulbs are going, and you go and you push them into the soil a little bit, twist so that they stay upright. Remember that point? It's got to be pointing to the sky. And if you're just throwing them in and they're really like somewhere like leaning or they fall over, you want to make sure that they're always pointing to the side. So you kind of push them in and twist at the same time, and you put them in proper spacing depending on the type of bulb that you put in. There will be instructions on the packages of bulbs. So again, if you're putting in tulips or you're putting in daffodils, you want to make sure that you're following the spacing recommendations of that particular variety. So now, okay, you go and you put them in. Now what? You take that next section, again, is 2 or 3 feet in the entire bed, and then you take that soil and you put it on top of the bulbs that you just placed in. Gently at first, so you don't knock them all over the place. And then you continue to repeat that process until you get to the end, and then you take that original soil and you move it to the last bulbs that you planted and cover them up. Mm-hmm. It works great because all of the bulbs are the same depth. They come up all at the same time. It gives you the opportunity, like if you have an issue where you have any type of rodents that try to eat your bulbs or squirrels that try to dig them out, what I suggest is putting on Repelzol. Now, we have a liquid Repelzol, but really what you want to do is use the granular Repelzol and put it right over the bulbs before you cover them up. And that will keep all of those tunneling moles, voles, squirrels, mice, all of the chipmunks, they'll keep them out of that area. So it's basically protecting them from vermin.
Great idea.
And that's what you need to do. So the other method of planting is like the dig, drop, done method, which we call it now these days. You basically take a bulb planter or a trowel or even one of those augers on the end of your drill, and you make individual holes on that bare ground that you just cleared out. And then you insert one bulb at a time, and then the next one, and then the next one. The only problem with that is that you often forget, did I put a bulb in that hole? Remember? Or you end up where it's not that great pattern that you can get when you're taking the soil out, putting the soil in, and then moving on that way. So there are benefits because you don't have to move all that soil. So if it's a smaller area, I have no problem with that method. No problem. Just go ahead and make sure that you're following the pattern. You don't want to like all of a sudden have a big gap because you forgot that you forgot bulbs aren't in there. Also with this way, it's a little harder to go and get some of the dual plantings where you're planting, say, some crocus or, grape hyacinths or things like that on top of whether they're tulips or daffodils. But again, just make sure you keep track of where those bulbs are. Next thing is you want to feed your bulbs after they're planted with a spoma bulb tone. Espoma bulb tone is just a broad fertilizer for bulbs. You can also use it if you've got some left. You can use it in the spring as well on some of the plants that you purchase that are summer flowering bulbs, like dahlias and things like that. But I like bulb tone just because it's a little broader than just, say, bone meal. Bone meal works. It's a good fertilizer, but Espoma has the benefits of bone meal plus, and it's all organic. It's all organic, which is really good. If you're wondering whether you should step down your bulbs after you're planting to get them in firm contact with the soil, well, the answer to that is yes. You want to make sure that there's no air pockets around those bulbs to where they can dry out and they end up not producing the flowers that you want because the bulb basically dry rots in the ground. So again, we want to get good soil to bulb contact. That understood? Julio, got anything to add?
No, I like that method 1, though.
Yeah?
Yeah, a lot easier.
It's easier in a way. The results are better. Guarantee that. Your results will be better. But it's not that you don't have to necessarily do it that way. You can do it the other way, but you got to make sure that you've got the bulbs at the same depth. You don't want to all of a sudden have some bulbs that are 6 or 8 inches deep and the other bulbs are 4 inches deep because they're not going to come up at the same time. But you have plenty of time. I think you can even plant bulbs into mid to December, December, where it's going to be colder. There's vernalization, which takes place, and that's, again, it's the bulbs need the cold and a long period of cold for them to produce flowers. So you can't take, all bulbs, like it can't be just taken right into, say, if you want to put some in a pot and bring it in the house, you won't get flowers, you'll get leaves. So make sure that you're getting your bulbs in, but once you're past really Christmas, it's real late, almost too late. I would then I'd put those bulbs into pots and leave them outside and see what happens.
Yeah, awesome.
Again, get out there, get your bulbs in the ground. It'll be the happiest thing that you do because you'll see them in the spring and they'll be amazing.
Early, yeah. Whew.
They'll be amazing.